Hello folks, Budbu.com here, Arne at the mic, and today I'm gonna talk about Commander. And the actual Commander, or the General, is Teneb, the Harvester. I have somewhat limited experience with Commander, but I've played with different decks in different settings, i.e. tournaments and just casual, duel and multiplayer, and I do play pretty much all the formats, including Vintage from time to time, but I do play a lot of Legacy, a lot of Standards, and Modern. And when I first started playing the game, I played a lot of casual decks and casual strategies, and I play a game for nearly 14 years right now, so I think I have some expertise in a way, even though Commander is probably the least played format for me, although I did play German Highlander, which is almost the same thing like Dual Commander, like French Commander, but you don't have the General, and it feels more like you are playing Legacy but with a bunch of one-offs, something like that. Even though Workshop is legal in that German Highlander. Anyhow, let's get down to business. So this is Abzandak. Teneb, as the commander here, is more just a value utility creature. You could actually just use a Doron or an Afanza, but that's just a break with not much of added value. And Teneb is just a good card as a late drop. It's a big flare that can actually get you more value, so it's in a way like a card advantage machine. In a way it's very slow, but it's still decent. It's better than just a random brick in those colors. And this particular version is more tuned for multiplayer Commander, so for bigger tables instead of just one-on-one dual commander. I'll have that dual commander Teneb version in the next video with a lot of cool combos inside, but this one is more just value. The list you're seeing up on the screen is just something that I pulled together myself on paper, but I definitely see a lot of cards really free for upgrades and the whole build is free for tuning. There are a whole lot of things you can do with this deck, especially with this value, just a good cards, multiplayer version of it. So first off, just to remind you what Teneb actually does, is that when you deal damage to a player, you pay 3 mana, in which there should be 1 black, and then you get to reanimate a creature from any graveyard and put it under your control. But to make it a bit more visual and comprehensive, let's go to the spoilers view. I have 34 lands. The mana base is not ideal. It's very budget, but you can put in a lot of good lands over here. I have my land count at 34, but I could definitely see more lands played in this deck, especially if you have a lot of value lands, a lot of cycle lands of each color, which I think is a good idea for this deck because you're sort of mid-range controlish, so you can catch up if you don't do much in the early turns. So with a lot of utility lands, like let's say Volar Stronghold and some other man lands and some other cards, I could some other good lands that do things like, apart from producing mana of a certain color, you can definitely up the land count to maybe even 36 or something. Especially in this version, which is much more about value and you can squeeze in extra cards by slicing even a small number of ramp spells and creatures. I mean mana dorks in this set. Well, no, not in this set, in this deck. So if you cut some of those, you probably want to add more lands. And for this mana base, you definitely want to put in all the duels, all the new ones, all the lands you could get your hands on, old filters, new filters, etc. Because basically, to make this deck really good, you would need a lot of different cards that and spells that would cost a plethora of colored mana. Let's speak about actually funky value lands here. Don't look too much at the budget like dual lands. I just wanted to fix my colors with what I had at the moment. Apart from Psycho lands, I found that even in value, less so creature intensive deck, Green Backwoods is okay, although in a bit of a different build you may not want it. Pendelhaven is just slightly better than a extra basic forest, because you have some mana doors that you want to pump. It's of course much better in the more creature heavy deck. Marchamar is okay, but let's just say if you have Voldred Stronghold, you may not have enough space for Meyer. Yeah, you can do a lot of cool stuff here. I think I got my hands on a bunch of manlands lately, like Stirring Wildwood, Quagmire, Shambling Band. So adding those for sure. And I think I've put some other value land. You probably want Canopy. If you have it, you probably don't want to buy it just for this deck unless it's some big tournament, because the price on that card bites. And I'm not talking about the Expedition version here, but any version. But Canopy is great. Dual land that draws you cards. Okay, creatures here are not sorted by mana cost, but you can see the trend. Basically, even for this value deck, you want some mana dorks. I'm probably playing way more than I should have, because I'm missing a few non-creature ram spells. For example, I wouldn't mind not just Coalition Relic, but some other mana stones here. But right off the gate, you see a few big finishers here. Overlord is actually pretty good in this deck because you actually have quite a few black permanents, and some are not creatures, or in case of Erebos, not creatures right away. Ancient Rider and Angel of Despair act as big trumps, like it's a big bid stake plus an answer to whatever they got in there. I really do like Arcfiend of Depravity and Multiplayer Commander because you can keep their spamming in check, and it's also a good beater for its costs. 5/4 flyer for 5 is okay, even if your ability is not gonna be all that relevant. You want extra cards and you want some ways to be in the game, so Bloodgift Demon is there. You have quite a few enchantments in the deck, so Doomwake Giant is actually good on this build. Devoted Druid can be easily replaceable with some Mana Stone. Erebos is quite great, I think. Allows for a lot of cool stuff to happen, draws you extra cards, animates sometimes just because of some non-creature black permanents. Switching of life gain in multiplayer is pretty big. You definitely do want some value creatures like Eternal Witness, for example. Then False Prophets, it doesn't have to be that card. but it's just a removal on a stick, and it's okay. You can block with to soak some damage, and especially in multiplayer, things can get pretty awkward. Sometimes people won't directly attack you or something, and then let's say they would attack you, and then you would nuke the board right there. So it could act as a sort of instant speed sweeper. Also, if you're in the market for this type of cards, also including that, I forget the name, 5 mana 2/2 white flyer with echo to reanimate into play a creature. With those types of creatures, and this one and some others, you may want, you definitely want to play the Phyrexian Tower. I believe that's the land that produces black normally, and then tap, sacrifice a creature, produce 2 black in that turn. So you definitely gotta think about it. Grey Merchant is pretty much always great in multiplayer, even if you just play him like that. It's just a lot of life gain. It's a body to block with. It's some damage to everybody. False Unravel, some of my friends don't like it, but I do like it. It's a fine body, and especially in the table full of blue decks and so on, it could get pretty ugly. Every time they draw a card, they basically lose one. So it's pretty dank. It's gonna scale up pretty nicely, especially if you quickly draw from Unraveler into Grey Merchant or things like that. Hornet Nest is nice. Roadblock, of course, it doesn't work against flyers, but once you pop it by just blocking some ground creatures, you get a bunch of flying Death Touch tokens. So then you become actually, for a time being, safe in the air as well. Hitonia the Krill is not necessary in this deck. It's fine. I probably would prefer just another mass removal over her, but people do like it and do play it in multiplayer a lot, I suppose for a reason. Maybe because it's a sweeper when you need it. By the time you need it, you probably actually can have that much mana, and it's something to do right there if you don't want to sweep. And for 6 Death Touch, it's a nice deal. Problem I have it is that Monstrosity takes so much mana, and most likely you won't be able to do this all in one turn, Casker, and activate Monstrosity. It's just so much. That means that she would need to survive a turn to actually do what you want her to do sometimes. Really like cards like Type Drinker in this sort of deck. We're also playing this similar enchantment with Extort, so Extort cards like this are super good, especially so cheap ones. Black and white Primordials are just great for multiplayer, period. They're just awesome every time you can cast them. Well, almost at any time. Of course, on the empty board it's not that great, but still. Lord of the Void is just a nice bit stick that provides some value. It's a 2-for-1 if it can get through. Fire Cage is awesome, provides you a bunch of blockers because you do play some mana dorks and they tend to die very quickly because people would want to sweep the board once there's some decent amount of pressure on the board. So yeah, you get chump blockers and it can start attacking pretty soon because you do have quite a few permanents to switch her on. Sagromancer is another type of card that is similar to the Unraveler. it's a decent flyer to attack with. It just provides you a lot of life. Of course, opponent's not gonna get discarded all that often, and you can actually tune your decks to make it such that actually happens more often because of you as well. But yeah, you're gonna mostly get the life out of the first ability, so when some of their creatures die, and that could also easily scale up if there is some deck based around tokens, and then somebody plays let's say small sweeper, like everybody's -1/-1 or -2/-2, and then all of a sudden you gain like just gigantic amount of life. Situations like that. Selvala, I do like her way more than in multiplayer than in duel, because her drawback is much less relevant in multiplayer, because you basically help everybody and not just one player. That's the point. But in the Necrotic Ooze Teneb combo version, like dual commander, I do like her as well, because she's a combo piece in that deck and not just a value creature. In there, we have an active Necrotic Ooze and some other creature in the graveyard, like Devoted Druid. You basically just draw the entire deck and draw a bunch of life. Not infinite, but a bunch. And you draw your whole deck so that you can actually make sure that you're gonna combo off. Let's say when you're missing some pieces, and then you have her in the graveyard, Ooze in play, and then Devoted Druid plus Quill Spike. Okay, this way you get an infinite Necrotic Ooze, but that might not be enough because of some ground blockers. Yeah, that will produce you also infinite green mana, but that might not be enough, and sometimes you just want to finish the game right away, and Selvala can help you do that. But more on that deck in the other video. Word Willer is fine because it's controllable effect, it takes up every turn, but it's much better in this deck than something like a Smokestack. You have a blocker, and this way you can nuke some planeswalkers, etc. So it has a lot of added benefits, and you don't have counterspells, you're not a blue deck, and you need ways to get rid of problematic enchantments and artifacts, and you don't run that many of those, so you can control it. Muse is nice because you don't want to be attacked, and at the same time you can attack with her as well because she's fine, so she's not gonna be blocked that often. Playing the Black Muse in here would be also fine because you do want to draw extra cards, and you do have quite a bit of life gain in the deck. Well of Roots is just nice, like mana ramp plus a big wall. Guild Mage doesn't really combo off with anything here, but it's just nice because you can give your big Flying Angels lifelink, and then sometimes have enough mana to activate both abilities at the same time, and then it's pretty huge because it says each opponent. So in multiplayer she's pretty disgusting sometimes. Coinsmith, just something to gain extra lives, and if you actually had on life on your table, you can start activating the second ability, and then because it's each opponent, you actually can sometimes win this way, even if you just have a lot of mana and they don't show any removal, which actually sometimes, well, not sometimes, actually very often would happen, because in multiplayer commander it's much more important to actually do stuff instead of just always be ready to react to stuff. That's what I learned so far. Decay is a catch on removal, spell abs and charm is just a flexible card. Justice is optional. I just like that it gains life, so which is very important for this deck. All you want is just some removal, some card advantage, and some good finishers. That's the basic idea of this version. Condemn and Ice Removal, Devouring Flash is good also because of the life gain. Go for forward. Mortify, Cut Path, Putrefy, just good spot removals. Victim of the Night also nice. Sorry, and though sometimes it could be pretty tricky, because in Commander you would play some funny cards, and Victim sometimes might get awkward, but most of the time it's just pretty much unconditional spot removal. Reckless Bite is okay because it's for 3 mana, you get to kill 2 Fangs with 1 card, so it's a 2 for 1, and the loss of life is not so insane for this deck like for some others, because you do have a bit of life gain, and then you can turn this extra life gain into extra cards with cards like Skeletal Scrying. I like that it's instant, and it's only 1 black, and yeah, losing some life is not gonna be insane, though could sometimes be serious, but most of the time it's not. So I already mentioned Blind Obedience, nice card to make sure that you're not gonna die too quickly, because some people in multiplayer might still like to play some red aggressive deck, which is unlikely, but I'll just say it's just nice to have this insurance that you have this also extort on a cheap card, etc. Ritual is probably really insane for multiplayer. I've seen it in action. I haven't played with as much as I've actually witnessed what it can do. It's just gonna draw you a bunch of cards like every turn. It's each and step, so if you have a big table, then this 4 mana enchantment can turn into quite a few cards, and it triggers all the enchantments goodness, plus it helps with the devotion, etc. Frontier Siege is nice because you do have flyers and you do want a lot of mana, so both abilities on that card are actually good and useful for this deck. Gift is just a nice way to give your ground guy evasion and gain a bunch of life. Glare of Subdual is just a nice way to make sure that you can control the board and not die super quickly. Also, occasionally you could just lock somebody out of the game with this. There are certainly many cards that can abuse the benefit of running Glare in your deck. If you run the Hermit, the 5 mana Echo guy that produces a bunch of squirrels, that sort of jazz, and yeah, you can really get value out of the Glare. Grave Betrayal is just something that I think pretty much every slow black commander deck should have. It's just so sick. I just don't know why people don't play that card as often. Yes, it's 7 mana and they can nuke it away, but okay, fine. If it just stays there for a turn, then it has a potential of providing a sick amount of value. Blowing Rain is just a catch on card. You can also put in Banishing Light in here as well. I won't blame you for that. Connections is integral because it's card draw plus devotion, and also triggers some other synergies. You definitely want Phyrexian Arena in the deck as well. Black Retreat is just a nice card because unlike some other retreats, this actually does something in multiplayer because it says each opponent, so it's actually good value, especially if you run a lot of fetch lands, So just Evolving Wells plus Thermorphic Expanse won't do it, so you'd need a bunch of other fetch lands to make this worth it. Otherwise you probably don't want to play it. Primal Bounty is just a C card. I remember playing it in the sideboard for my John deck. I think it was John's Midrange intended, or even I remember people actually tried it out in Black Splash Green Devotion, something like this. I believe it was legal. Yeah, so it wasn't actually during the times of the Jaunt Midrange, unless it was Jaunt Planeswalkers. But yeah, people trying to play it in the Black Devotion deck in the sideboard, and sometimes it was actually pretty brutal. I do like this card, that's for sure. Just so much value all the time, especially with a lot of fetch lands, extra life as well, which you really need. I've put in Thought Killer's Verdict in here for extra life gain because that's something the deck really wants, and it also provides an extra body to block with, so it's pretty good. Predator's Council is not really needed here. I think Seasons Pass out of the new set Shadows over Innistrad is probably much better here because it's just 6 mana and this one is 8, so that's a bit much. Yeah, it's nice that you don't have a maximum hand size and you return all the cards from your graveyard, but most of the time you don't really need all of those cards, and you just need a few of select ones. And yeah, Seasons Pass is probably much better here. Yeah, because of cards like Read the Bones, you need all the life gain spells in here. I do definitely need Painful Troops in this deck as well for more card draw, because Sign and Blood is okay, but Double Black is weird because I can play Night Whispers. I probably should play Whispers instead of this, or maybe even both, because you do want to draw a bunch of cards with this deck, that's for sure. A Whip just does everything in this deck. You could spice it up even via playing a Fauna Shaman here as well. That will make the deck just insane, because you just discard the Mana Dork with the Fauna Shaman, fetch something good, and then if it dies you get to reanimate it and things get lifelink. Or you can just discard a beefy creature that you can't really cast this turn. You discard it via Fauna Shaman, and then for 4 mana you bring it back into play and you attack with it and you gain some life. So let's say if it's one of those Primordials or one of those Angels, it just becomes absurd. And if you get to chain that every turn or every second turn, that's just so much. Liliana Vest is just a staple. This Gideon is not absurd here, but it's fine in multiplayer. You definitely want 5 mana Gideon in this deck and the 6 mana Elspeth, that's for sure, and possibly some other Planeswalkers as well. Like Obnixilis would be fine here, that's for sure. Most of Sorin's here would be fine here for sure, especially probably the 6 mana one, I guess. The new one would be pretty cool, but those 4 mana ones are fine as well. Just provide charm blockers every turn. Probably same goes for 4 mana Gideon. Just tokens every turn to make sure that you're not gonna be trampled over too quickly. Okay guys, so that's about it. There are a lot of things you can do with this deck to upgrade it. You can play better ramp, some better card draw. Removal is probably okay here. You can play some better win conditions, something more ultimative. I've just put in here some average beatdown creatures. Oh yeah, I haven't talked about Angel Serenity. It's kind of crazy. even though they kill it and then they get their creatures back, but you can also just like in the older standard, just exile some of your value creatures from the graveyard, and then you get them back to your hand when this angel dies. You definitely can play Avacyn in here. You can play some other good flyers here, like Baneslayer Angel is totally fine here. Archangel of Foon is not gonna be that absurd because you don't have that many creatures here. So yeah, a Knight of Reliquary will be awesome here as well as a good beater, good tutor for a bunch of value lands and so on. So there's you can incorporate some Life from the Loam package in here, that sort of jazz. There are a bunch of things you can do with this deck, but this is kind of a big prototype example so that you get the general idea. Okay guys, see you next time with the episode about dual Teneb based around the Croticus. Goodbye folks.